Okay, so we're going to start this video by showing you how to use the paper cutter to cut your strips to make paper beads. First things first, let's get to know our paper cutter a little bit. It's comprised of some pretty basic pieces. As you can see, this is actually a pretty good sized one. It'll cut up to like a 12 by 12 sheet. It's wide enough in the grooves. A couple of things you should know. I recommend a rotary cutter just because it's easier to keep the blade sharp. It's easy to replace. It stays protected, and unlike a traditional guillotine cutter, you're not going to have to worry about it pinching the paper. The piece that I'm moving right now is called the arm. This is the cutter. This is the handle above the cutter. Inside of here you can see that there's a little circular blade. These are actually the same kind of blades that they use for if you do sewing. If you ever use a rotary cutter for sewing, this is the same kind of blade that they use. Down here, this is your cutting plate. You can see that it's actually pretty well used. It's got a line already built into there. Some things that I also want to point out is that I have modified my paper cutter just a little bit so that it has pre-measurements. I don't know how well you can see this. I'm going to try and zoom here. There we go. So on our cutting plate, from the blade edge to the edge of the cutting plate is approximately 1/4 inch, and then I have little increments that are approximately an 1/8 inch out, going all the way as high as 1 inch from there, so that way I know just by the turn of my paper where my wide end is going to be and what the exact measurement is going to be. I do that so that my cuts are consistent and so that I can cut very quickly. Excuse me, I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out here and we'll get to cutting. Okay, so bear with me here. I'm not exactly a videographer, but I'm giving it my best shot. So for starters, I'm going to start by cutting some paper for some disc beads. Disc beads are actually, they're really fun. They are exactly what they sound like. They are a small disc. So that is, but they're very narrow width and very long strips of paper. We're going to need a lot of these because you actually need to layer them up to get the width that you want. If you click on my next video, how to make a disc bead, that'll actually make a lot more sense. But for cutting, remember, I actually want a pretty narrow width, so about 1/4 inch. So there's my width, and there's my point right there. And I know that because of the lines on the plate where the blade has made its mark. So let's back up. We're going to start by making a few cuts. Run that one out. Line it up. And we know there's our point. That's our width. Put down your arm. Slide the blade. Find your width. Find your point. Put down the arm. Slide your blade. Do you see how this is working here? Find your point. Find your width. We're basically just working those zigzags. We're zigzagging all the way across that sheet of paper until we get the strips or a quantity of strips that we want. In this case, though, I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting the entire sheet so that we have plenty to work with. So in this example, we're going to be cutting paper for bicone beads. The only difference between cutting a bicone and a disc, they're both long triangles. We're going to be rolling them the same way. The only difference is, though, the width is going to be a little bit different on our paper. You'll see that I'm using different paper for this. This is a torn out magazine sheet. I think it was like a Dog's In Review or something like that. But I love the ads, the nice bright or the intensely colored paper, and it's heavier paper. It's kind of glossy. So it usually cuts and rolls really nice. So here we go. We're going to line up our point. There's our 1/2 inch mark right there. Lay down our arm and start cutting. 1/2 inch point, or there's our 1/2 inch, our point, lay it down, cut. Half-inch mark, point, lay it down, cut. You will notice sometimes, though, that magazine paper will shift just a little bit on you when you're cutting. Don't worry about it. Unless it shifts a lot, it really doesn't affect the way your beads come out at all. If you start noticing that you're getting a lot of shift or wrinkled edges, it's probably time to either change the plate, these plates are changeable, or it's time to change your blade. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and keep cutting so that when we get to our video on rolling bicone beads, I've got all my paper ready. I'll be back. Okay, so for this one, we are going to cut strips for, sometimes I call it a triangle or a cone, or it can also be made into a teardrop. In most of my literature, I refer to it as a cone because it's exactly that. It's cone shaped, like those orange cones you see on the side of the road when they're doing construction. That's the shape. So these are really, really simple. Again, it's a long triangle. It's just simply not center cut, and the base is much wider. Let me show you what I mean. In this case, the base is going to be 1 inch. So I'm going to take that wide edge, line up my point down here, and we're going to cut that. Now, right now I'm going to move the paper so that you can see this a little bit more clearly. Can you see where it has there's our edge, but our point actually kind of goes down at an angle, okay? And that's okay. That's exactly perfect for what we want, because, you know, just like a triangle shape or a cone shape, one end is much wider than the top. So I'm going to cut a few more of these strips, and then that way we have enough also for our doing our cone video. And I'm going to show you too in that video how to turn a cone shape into a teardrop. I have a lot of requests for the teardrop beads, and it's so easy it's almost scary. Alright guys, so I'll be back in my next video to show you how to make some different kinds of paper beads. Thanks! I'll see you later. Have a good day.